Enjoy. Also, views and opinions expressed by Edwin are Edwin and Edwin's only, all right? None of his sponsors, employers, baby mama, anybody he went to school with, anybody he owed money to. With that being said, enjoy the video. What is going on, everyone? Edwin Pagan here. Thanks for joining me on the Word on the Road podcast, your weekly technology care package. If this is your first time listening to the podcast, I appreciate you listening. This is a weekly podcast I do from the great city of Orlando, located in Florida. If you don't know that Orlando's in Florida, I don't know what to tell you though, but maybe it's the background on this. If you're watching, there's a background. It's like kind of the mountains. I don't know. But that being said, I film from Orlando. But this is basically a podcast I do weekly on Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. Basically, I take articles from the internet, technology related, that I like, that I find interesting. I share them with you. I give you my insight. I break them down, and then I send you on your way, hopefully more informed, more aware of the events going on in the world. Maybe you have a tinfoil hat on. Maybe you're about to break up with your girlfriend because you realized that I don't know where I'm going with this, but what I'm saying is it's just my way of sharing my insights on things that I like with y'all folks. With that being said though, everyone who's been watching and giving your feedback, I really appreciate it. It means a lot to me, and hopefully I can apply it to the coming episodes. I know someone told me the other day that they wanted to see more like slides and like different views and more clips, so I'll try to do that, whoever said that. With that being said, though, what's going on in my world? I'm doing good, man. I have been just working on a tutorial on this mobile version of Linux that runs on mobile phones. It's for hacking. I'll spare you the details, but it's crazy how I had given my mom a Nexus phone like 3 years ago, right? And just so lo and behold, she still has the phone. She doesn't use it, but I need that phone in order to do a video. And then me trying to get my mom to give me that phone has been a very awkward conversation because she does not want to give me the phone back. And it was just like this awkward exchange. It's like, Mom, I need the phone. I'm like, okay, Mom, I get that. Like, but I let you borrow the phone, Mom, because your phone was. So it was a very awkward exchange to get the phone. But I finally got the phone for my mom. Our relationship is still intact as well. But shout out to my mom, because she wouldn't even give me the password to the phone. She's like, I don't want to give you the password to the phone. I'm like, Mom, I don't want to wipe the phone. And I ended up having to hack into the phone. It's like the same thing I got in trouble for in high school. She's trying to make me do again. But like, yeah, so I got the phone. So I've been working on a tutorial. I've been working on trying to figure out how to get the shot for that tutorial. But I can't wait to release it. It's gonna be a really dope video about like basically a phone that's designed for like hacking. It's really gnarly. If you watch Mr. Robot, there's a lot of clips on that show where they showcase that phone in particular. So that's pretty dope. And then after that, man, just working on the home office, working on the business as well. I'll spare you the details on that, but you know, Papi's got to make money as well. So trying to figure all that out as well is always interesting. So what else, man? Me and my girlfriend filmed the podcast. We'll be releasing that as well. It's called Our So-Called Relationship. And so seeing my girl like react to her voice, like if you follow me on Instagram, I have videos of it, but like seeing her like react to listening to her voice for the first time is freaking hilarious, because it's what I went through when I was trying to become a stand-up comedian, and like just like having to listen to your sets, and it's like, ugh, it's cringeworthy. But we have our podcast that we're doing together. It's like a relationship podcast. It's not technology related at all. So if you strictly listen to me for technology stuff, I highly suggest do not subscribe to it, because I rarely go into technology stuff with her. But if you're into like laughing and relationship advice and stuff like that, it's definitely a dope podcast to do. So we've been doing that, editing that, man. And like I'm having so many issues with technology lately. As someone who specializes in tech, bro, like my MacBook has been acting up for like the third time, and then like the iPad, I don't know, man. I'm literally like, I love Apple, but it is an abusive relationship, bro. It's like I keep going back with my ex on this one, but excuse me. But with that being said, man, a lot of interesting articles on today's episode, man. Really excited about these. Of course, the articles are located, a link to these articles are located on the description of the video. All right, if you're watching on YouTube, it's in the description. If you're on iTunes, if you're on Spotify, if you look in the bio, it's going to be located in there. So without further ado, let's go ahead and jump to the first article, son, from the fine folks at 10. This was written by Dave. I can't say it because I went to public school, but his last name is this right here. But this is an exclusive article. It's about live facial recognition coming to the U.S. police body cameras. I know I'm always talking about facial recognition on this podcast, but it's something that intrigues intrigues me, and it's something that I feel like if I don't talk about it, if I'm not open about it to people, then it's going to be something that we're not aware of, and I think we need to be aware of what it is. So in this article, they're basically talking about how a company called Wolfcom that basically does make that makes technology for police. They're like a defense company in that sense. They're basically going to start implementing a facial recognition system on their cameras. So their body cameras that can film suspects, they're also going to be able to run facial recognition, tell you if it's a missing person, if there's a warrant, if this person has like if it has a felony warrant out for them. So basically using facial recognition in order to do that. So you got RoboCop basically. It's like our police department's going to be cyborgs, because it's going to be like they have a computer that's working and assisting them, and the police officer is basically there as the muscle. This really does tread on some interesting territory, because the previous company, so let's backtrack on this real quick, so kind of just give you some insight on this. So most police departments now have implemented police cameras on the police officers, right? So I recently had an interaction with law enforcement. I was looking for their camera the entire time. It was pretty funny. But most police officers have this type of camera. It's by a company called Axon. So they have this mounted camera. And this basically is a high-definition camera that has a really large battery in it, and it's triggered. It's basically triggered by the police officer. They have different configurations for them, but basically it's always recording when the officer's at a scene and everything like that, and it's basically for the protection of the agency. It's for the protection of the officer. It's basically the standard now on most uniforms. And now all these devices do is all in essence those devices do is record footage. That's all they do. There's nothing. Basically this is like a glorified GoPro camera in essence, right? And then so these cameras have hard drives in them, and so when a police officer submits a report, they attach the footage to this, they update it to the website, etc. So there's a whole another segment. I can go deep into that, but that's basically the meat and potatoes of it. Now, this same company that we're talking about here, called Foxcom or Wolfcom, what they're going to implement is the ability to record, but also have the ability for this device to recognize faces, store them, and cross-reference them to a database and see if they match with any of these defendants who have warrants out for them. So in essence, a police officer can be giving you a ticket but have a computer that's scanning everybody in the room and seeing if anybody has warrants. And so it kind of treads on this interesting territory of like, man, like it's like we're being policed in a way where it's like, well, like it's an interesting thing. When I was in it's an interesting, it's like I don't like to get too political about it, but like it's one of those things where like it's almost like the Holocaust in the sense of like, this is a terrible example, but when I learned about the Holocaust in the 5th grade, the way our teacher kind of told us about it, he did a really interesting job of describing how the Holocaust happened, because despite popular belief, it wasn't a situation where they just rounded up the Jews and went on. It was a situation where they slowly but surely started eliminating rights of the Jews. And one of the things is that they had to identify themselves all the time. They had to have like a star on them, on their jacket wherever they traveled in order to identify themselves. And so it kind of goes into this in light of like, do I have the right to be anonymous? Do I have the right to say I don't want to be able to be identified by police and law enforcement immediately? Like I want to feel anonymous, or is this something that for the safety of everyone we need to have? And it kind of makes you question like what's the true purpose of this? And it goes to show that, like, because like I said, this technology has existed in the private sector for a while. Like I've seen it implemented at theme parks, at retail stores. But when you start crossing those lines of like retail to like law enforcement, now it's a whole different thing, because it's like it's almost like I don't know what to say. It's just like, there's people out there who can't afford to get arrested. You know what I mean? Like they might have a warrant for something simple, and now that's like it's just gonna be a vicious circle of like be able to capture people. And I don't know. It's a rock in a hard space, because it's like you want us to be safe, you want the people to be safe, you want there to be a way that like police officers are stopping a car of people, and there's a girl in there who's been kidnapped or there for human trafficking, that they're able to save them, and this technology can do that. But in that same respect, it could there's that other aspect of it that's just like, but do we need that? So I don't know. It's definitely showing that like police aren't going anywhere. They're just becoming more efficient with their technology. And it's kind of like we're all becoming these cyborgs or like RoboCop, human hybrids. You know what I mean? But definitely check out this article. There's a lot of different articles out there about facial recognition. I know I do a terrible bro science version of it, but this is an interesting time in history because, the fact that this facial recognition technology works, a lot of it has to do with the fact that now we have broadband access on our phones, and some of the technology works with a police officer's phone. But when you start thinking about things like 5G technology and networks that are extremely fast, facial recognition can work even better in those areas. And if you put it on a police officer who's mobile, then they're just basically like they can quickly identify people across reference databases because of that technology. And so it's just kind of that balance of like, what are we gonna use this for? What are we using this technology for? Is it to bring us closer, or is it to like help us round up all the people who have warrants for tickets and stuff like that? So that's kind of my 2 cents. I don't want to vent too much about that, but with that being said, let's get here on a lighter note. A lighter article. This is for all you folks who have iPhones out there. And you're looking for an extra $25, Apple might owe you $25. All right. Their class action lawsuit for slowing down iPhones. I don't know if y'all remember back in 2017, there was something called Apple Battery Gate. Battery Gate was basically so as long as I can remember as being an IT professional, a question people always ask me was like, Edwin, do manufacturers purposely slow down phones? Like, or do they slow down your computer? Like, do they build stuff so that like after like five or 6 months they slow it down, and after a year it slows down, and in 3 years it breaks itself because that's how they designed it? And I always said that's stupid. That's not how it works. But then apparently, if you somebody came out, a researcher came out and said, hey, he found a correlation with iPhones being slowed down after their battery reaches a certain life capacity. Meaning, if the battery on your iPhone is at like 75% life, right? Meaning like if the battery's getting old, basically, right? If the battery's getting old, iPhone will purposely slow itself down in order to preserve the life of the battery. So they're going to say, hey, instead of completely breaking your battery, we'll slow down your phone so it doesn't require as much battery. But in that respect, you're still slowing down the phone. Now, everyone kind of didn't realize what was going on here, but this is something that, as an engineer, or I'm not an engineer, but as someone who kind of understands the engineering of computers, you can understand how, like, if your computer is overheating, why the computer is going to slow itself down in order to prevent any damage. Now, your computer has like those blue screens of deaths. The reason the computer does that is because it's designed to say, hey, instead of causing more damage to the system, let's just shut off before we cause any more damage. And so what Apple is doing here in that sense with the phone is saying, hey, the battery is an important part of the phone. Now, if you want your battery to last a little bit longer, then we're going to have to slow down the phone. Now, this all happened after an update that Apple pushed out. And so people were pretty upset because they wanted Apple to say, hey, this isn't fair. You should be slowing down my phone, blah, 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 blah. And you should have told us. And so this lawsuit kind of stems from that, is in the sense that like Apple should have been transparent with its customers and their technology. And I completely agree with that 100%. Like, yeah, it's something that you should be transparent, but I also think that it's something that the media took and ran with it, because even when Apple admitted that this is what they were doing, they also said, if you want us to fix this problem, you need to come in with $29 and we'll replace the battery on your phone with a fresh battery and your phone will be fast again, right? And it's true, because at the end of the day, it's something that they've engineered into their phones in order to make it last longer. It's something that manufacturers all over the world do with devices. A perfect example is this. Your car is capable of going 180 miles per hour, but the factory restricts the car typically at 120, 130 miles per hour. That's the truth. Your engine is capable of doing it, but it's restricted electronically. They have the ability to restrict it electronically. They're not going around in their commercials and advertising, hey, we restrict the speed, because it's not a very good selling point. And that's kind of what Apple is doing here in that sense, is saying, hey, listen, we do restrict it, we do that, but we're doing this to make the phone quality or the phone experience last longer. And they did, later on release an update on iPhone that basically allowed you to choose between having, the full performance of the phone or having your phone set to preserve the battery longer, so it reduces the performance of the phone, a little bit, but, noticeably that it's not running at full capacity in order to preserve the battery. And like, it's a proven thing. Like, I've seen this where I replaced someone's iPhone battery and the phone worked amazingly after, because of the replacement of the battery. But in that respect, you can get $25 now from Apple because they had a lawsuit. They had to settle, But I also feel like this is one of those things that, again, the media took it, they ran with it because they're always looking for flaws against Apple. Not to say that Apple does not have issues with their hardware and is not notorious for lawsuits because of their hardware. But this is something that, like, as an IT technician, it's one of those things that, like, when someone says their computer's running really slow, one of the things we'll ask them is, like, is your fan blowing out a lot of air, and is it really hot air? Because it typically means that, like, hey, the computer's overheating. So they'll say, hey, my computer's blowing out a lot of hot air really fast and it's going really, really slow, but I'm not running anything. Well, that's because the computer is trying to preserve itself by slowing it down because of the amount of heat that it's creating. So a lot of engineering stuff. I won't bore you with that stuff, but that's kind of my take on that. So if you got an iPhone, check out the web, or check out the article first of all from Wired.com. But you might be qualified to receive $25 because iPhone decided to slow down your stuff. So with that being said, we're gonna end on this last article. Let me take a sippy of my water. All right, last article coming from the fine folks. We got Wired magazine again twice on this. I didn't even realize it was Wired. So next article is coming from the fine folks at Wired magazine, basically talking about how hackers can clone millions of Toyota, Hyundai, and Kia keys, man. So over the past years, you know what? Let me not read the article. Go check out the article. But to kind of give you a bro science of what's going on here. So basically, the article is talking about how hackers have been able to create copies of people's wireless keys. And now there's a serious vulnerability with Toyota, Hyundai, and Kia keys. And I think the list of cars that are vulnerable are right here. I think it's like Toyota, Tesla, Kia, and Hyundai. Now, they're vulnerable. Now, I want to show you a video real quick to kind of just highlight how this is achieved, because it's pretty interesting how it works. So if you look closely at this video, I'm going to show you real quick. This guy's taking out this little book bag right here, right? And so what's going on right here is, and just to kind of show you what's going on here, is that with this hand right here, he is basically he has an antenna on this hand, and it's basically taking the signal of the keys that are in the house that are wireless. He's taking the signal and then he's boosting it to the other hand that has another antenna, right? And just to show you what's happening is, so you hit play and you see it boosts the antenna, grabs the keys, and now he's able to turn the car on because it got the signal, it copied the keys, and now he'll get into the car and drive off, nobody's business. So just to show you one more time, kind of quick motion, he walks up, clones the keys, walks away, and does it. Now, this is a vulnerability that has existed in cars that are wireless for a very, very long time, and it's something that manufacturers have kept on the low, right? Because it's like a lot of cars these days are push to start wireless key entry, and people don't realize that. Like, I had a friend one time, or a coworker. He told me, he's like, Edwin, there's no such thing as wireless and security. The word security means that something is secure, and the word wireless, that means it's in the air, and they don't go together, because if it's in the air, it can be captured. And so in essence, what's going on here is that your car key, that wireless car key you have, it's transmitting a signal all the time. It's constantly transmitting a signal saying, hey, where are you? Hey, car, where are you? Hey, car, where are you? Hey, car, where are you? It's constantly responding. It's asking for that. And your car in return is sending out a signal saying, hey, keys, where are you? And then when they see each other, when they hear the signal, then they can say, turn on, unlock the car, etc. And so what they're doing here with that device is basically grabbing the signal from the car grabbing the signal from your keys saying, hey, car, where are you? And that device pretends to be the car, take the signal and replicates it. Now, that's the bro science version of it, and take my word for it, but it's a very simple vulnerability that a lot of cars are susceptible to. Now, Tesla has since disabled that feature, so this isn't vulnerable to Teslas, but a lot of cars are. Now, there's one thing I have to tell you about this. As long as you put your keys in somewhere where the signal can't be reached, meaning you put it in a purse, you put it in the freezer, you put it in a Faraday bag, which is like that bag that's RFID protection. If you put it in there, this hack will not work. But if you leave your keys like at valet, or if you leave your keys like right next to your door, this attack can be very easy to achieve, because as you can see, look at where the driveway is and look at where the house is, where the door would be. So it's a lot easier to get to those keys. So with that being said, this is a very interesting video. This is something that's existed for a very long time. And I could tell you that like initially police weren't believing people, because people would report, call the police and say, hey, someone broke into my car. Police would say, did you lock it? They're like, yes, I locked it. They're like, well, how did you lock it if they got into the car and grabbed something? If the window isn't broken, if they don't have a copy of the keys, how did they get into the car? Clearly, the only way to do that was that, only to find out that this vulnerability does exist, and that's how they're doing it. So definitely worth something looking into, but it's really fascinating to see how like when hackers figure out freaking crazy ways to like steal cars, and this is one of them. I also had a coworker that this actually happened to, where she left her car parked somewhere at her house, parked in the driveway, keys were by the door, and someone literally stole it and drove away. It had all her clothes in it and everything, and reported to the police, etc. But it happens, and there's a lot of sophisticated car thieves out there still. So with that being said, man, that wraps up this week's Word on the World episode, episode 7, episode 8. I'm not sure what episode this is, but it is Friday, man. So I'm gonna get out of here. I appreciate everyone who's been watching. I hope you have a great weekend. Tune in on Monday for another episode. Leave your stories and story requests below, comments, like, subscribe, all that good stuff. But until next time, guys, my name is Edwin Pagan. Y'all have been fun. I appreciate y'all. Take care. Peace.
Alex, what are you doing?
Watching my dad's channel.
You're watching your dad's YouTube channel?